Good Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock and time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Browns with a Players' Day off out in Berea, getting ready for their final preseason game of the preseason. 1 o'clock Saturday in Kansas City. Game time temperatures expected to be in the 90s. Yesterday, Kevin Stefanski talked about dealing with the heat and who will get the start in that game.
The starters will play, similar to that Washington game. We'll play the starters, probably 20 to 25 plays. There are some guys that I'll hold out from the game as well, but we'll talk about that maybe later in the week. Yeah, I was just actually checking that just 10 minutes ago. So I think it's 91 on Saturday in Kansas City. It's 103 the day before, so it's going to be hot. It'll be warm here later in the week. It could be warm September 10th at our place, so you have to acclimate to the heat safely, obviously, but that's something that we've really had our eye on and things that we've been working through all the way back to Greenbrier.
With that, let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So Mary Kay, who do you expect to sit of the starters? Who do you think Kevin won't chance banging up or risking anything with?
There's a few guys that would probably fall into that category. Perhaps a Joel Bitonio, maybe Nick Chubb, perhaps even Miles, Denzel. There are a couple of guys that might get the night off. I think some of it will depend upon what Andy Reid decides to do with his starters, because they have to play September 7th, 3 days earlier than anyone else in the NFL. Of course, they're hosting the Lions on September 7th on Thursday Night Football. So, if they're going to play a bunch of backups in this game, or they're going to pull their starters out after a series or two, then Kevin Stefanski might adjust accordingly.
You've seen all of training camp. You've seen all the joint practices. Can you give us just an overall sense of where everything sits? Are the Browns pretty happy with the work they've gotten done so far?
Yeah, they're pretty happy with the work they've gotten done. I think when I looked out at practice yesterday, it looked to me to be the healthiest they have been. It was a full complement of Browns players out there. There were very few people that were not practicing yesterday. You had Elijah Moore back. You had Jack Conklin back for a little while. You had Greg Newsome back out there. So it really was, most of the team out there. There are some guys that are not going to make it back right away. That's Marquise Goodwin. He, might end up on some kind of an injury list, like the non-football injury list for, the beginning of the season and whatnot. But for the most part, it looked like the Cleveland Browns of 2023. And I think once they put it all together, I think they're going to be a pretty good football team.
So I know you wrote an article about this. Take us through the thought, with what you gathered. The way the Browns feel about Deshaun Watson after the joint practices. You heard, he threw 3 interceptions, the sky's falling, the things aren't working. How do the Browns feel with the progress Deshaun has made?
They really feel great about the progress Deshaun has made, and they were not worried one bit about what went on in Philadelphia. And that's because they were trying some different things against a different look of a defensive front. What they wanted to try to determine was, with the quarterback runs, what could they successfully do against certain types of fronts, and what could they not? And they were really working hard on that, even more so than the passing game. And therefore, they weren't too worried about some of those interceptions. Also, Elijah Moore was not out there. And, that's been Deshaun's really one of his favorite targets, of course, Amari and Elijah. And without Elijah out there, that took a lot of their offense off the field. And this was just not a 2-day situation for them to be concerned about in any way, shape, or form.
And the Eagles are expected to be a Super Bowl team, so it's not like it was anything other than an elite NFL team. I know you also wrote an article about this. That offense, not playing as well as they wanted to might be the best thing. Take us through kind of that article.
Yeah, I really believe that. I feel like the fact that they went out there and did not just light it up on that day 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles, and to a certain extent on day 1 as well, because Amari just was kind of off that day. He and Deshaun were having a hard time connecting. So the fact that they just didn't look like an offensive juggernaut against this Philadelphia Eagles football team, I think it sent them back home with more of a sense of urgency, with the idea in their minds and the notion that we really have to keep the pedal to the metal and we have to work really, really hard because we are not ready yet.
The other thing that came out of that Eagles, this one, the preseason game, Cade York makes 3 field goals, misses the opportunity to hit the game winner. And again, this is from a Hey Mary Kay. Why do you think the Browns aren't more concerned about Cade York?
I think they truly believe that he is just working himself through a little bit of a slump right now, and that once he just gets over that hump, that it's going to be an upwards trajectory, that he's going to be fine in the same way that perhaps Daniel Carlson was. If anybody needs a little refresher on that, he was drafted in 2018 by the Vikings. He went 1 for 4 in his first 2 games on his kicks. Mike Zimmer cut him after 2 games. He left. He got signed by the Raiders that year. He made 16 of 17 to set a club record for the Raiders of 94%. And he's just been on this tremendous upward trajectory ever since, where he's just been one of the NFL's best kickers, made the Pro Bowl in 2022. So the Browns really believe it's too early to give up on Cade York. They think that Bubba Ventrone, the special teams coordinator, will be able to coax him through this, and they just feel like they still have a good kicker on their hands.
Yeah, it's important to note, you mentioned Mike Zimmer. Kevin Stefanski was on that staff, so saw that pretty much firsthand. The Browns also redid Joel Bitonio's contract. They renegotiated. So take a look. This is from Over the Cap, OTC. They opened up just under $7.9 million in cap space, did the Browns, by restructuring Joel Bitonio's contract. So when you add that in, the Browns now currently $22.685 million in cap space. That is second most in the NFL, according to Over the Cap. So, Mary Kay, do you get the sense they did that just so they have some flexibility, or is there a specific need that you think Andrew Berry's kind of eyeing to make sure he has the resources available?
I don't think he has anything up his sleeve. I think they're just managing their cap and getting it in the kind of shape that they want it to be in. And, of course, they are poised for anything in this type of scenario, but I don't think they're really planning to do anything or make any kind of a big splash. I think this is more so to have your options open if you want to re-sign some of your own guys, extend some of your own guys. And I don't think that this is somebody big is coming down the pike.
So the other thing that's very different this year, there are no early cut downs. So they're going to go from 90 to 53 a week from tomorrow, 4 o'clock Tuesday. How different is that? Is it that would seem like it's almost going to be bedlam once there's 900 NFL free agents that become available.
Well, they've done this before. This is not the first year that they have done this. So the NFL is used to it. And it really, it seems like it's better for everyone, than to have this long, drawn out process. So this way, everybody kind of knows what the deal is on one day, and it just seems a little bit more efficient. And you tinker with the roster along the way before you get to that August 29th cut down to 53. So, by the time you get there, you have already kind of messed with the back end of your roster enough that you really know what you're doing.
Yeah, that was the follow-up. The Browns have a pretty good idea of who those 53 will be.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely have a great idea of who the 53 will be. And there's probably only about 4 really tough decisions that they'll have to make. I would say there's a tough decision in the, in the wide receiver room. There's probably a tough decision or 2 in the defensive tackle room, perhaps in, amongst the defensive backs. But for the most part, they have a really good idea of what the 53 will look like. And then, of course, that will change over the course of a few days after that.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about Elijah Moore, wide receiver, and do everything wide receiver for the Browns. Sports for CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave. Hey, guys. Love your show, Danielle. I'm just calling again about Cade York. All I can say is, if we lose games because of the kicker, this city will probably riot and probably want to burn down the stadium, and that's not a good thing. So all I got to say is to Andrew Berry and to Kevin Stefanski, please, why don't you just have Phil Dawson or someone coach Cade York, or who specifically coaches Cade York? Is it special teams? So what are your thoughts? Do you think that we're going to burn down the stadium if we lose to kicking? Thanks, Dave. Woo-hoo, go Brownies.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, we get a couple of the people that want Phil Dawson. He's already talked to, Cade York has talked to Phil Dawson. He's given him the tips. I think the fewer people that are giving Cade York advice right now are probably, he needs one voice. That's it.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you don't want to dwell on something and speak it more into existence than it already is. You don't want to make it larger than life to the point where, he's so focused on it that he can't just go out there, step up to the ball and kick it the way he has done for most of his life. So I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to stop overthinking things. He needs to just rely on his muscle memory and his natural talent and try not to be overthinking things. That's easier said than done. I know that. But it seems like that is what the issue is. The Browns are not worried at all about his confidence, and he is not worried about his confidence. He said after the game the other night that confidence will never be an issue for me. And I used that as my headline because I thought that was one of the most important things that he said that night. So now it is time for him to just go out and just try to do what his body naturally knows how to do. Now,
you're at training camp every day. When he kicks out at training camp, he hasn't missed too many, correct?
He has not. I mean, he's near perfect at training camp. So there's something that's going on, during the course of a game. And some of those kicks were, a little bit longer of kicks. One of them was a 47-yarder. One of them was a 46-yarder. One of them was a 49-yarder. And there's something about that sort of length of kick, above 45 yards that is giving him problems. But he was always known as someone with a big booming leg. And we see him easily kick 60-yarders in practice. We saw him kick the 58-yarder in the opener last year. So distance is not a problem for him. Somehow it's just veering a little bit to the right most of the time. Then he overcompensated. The thing to be concerned about, though, is, technically he's 3 of 6 on field goals in this preseason for 50%, which is not good. But he really missed 2 at the end of the game in Philadelphia, but only one of them counted because of the penalty. So in actuality, in a game time situation, when he has stepped up to kick the ball, he has only made 3 out of 7 of those kicks. And I think it's a concern.
Yeah, again, got to get it right because they're going to need him. They're going to need him to win some games because all games in the NFL are reasonably close. Elijah Moore talked to the media yesterday, talked about his thoughts in the process of lining up in the backfield.
I don't think that they would expect me to be back there, and if they do, I don't think they expect me to run the ball. You know, I think they probably think I'm going to run a route, which I'm going to do that too. So you're going to pick your poison on what you think I'm going to do. And if you guess wrong, man, we got you.
Do you feel like the matchups when you do run routes are better when you line up in the backfield?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like me or a linebacker. What you think? I like me any day, so.
What about, just, from a toughness standpoint, and, I mean, you were used to getting yards every catch, and, how do you rate yourself in terms of just, size-wise going up against bigger linebackers and defenders?
Definitely got to get my mind right, going back there, line up in the backfield, but it's football, man. I've been playing football since I was little. I get the ball, trying to let nobody touch me. That's it.
Mary Kay, every time I hear him, he's just a likable guy, and you can tell he truly is looking forward to the opportunity that the Browns are getting ready to give him.
Yeah, he really is. I think that Browns fans are really going to come to love Elijah Moore. Like you said, he's got a great personality. He's got a lot of flair to him. He's fun to watch on the football field. I think, when you come to a place where they show you that faith, where they show you that you're really wanted and valued here, it brings out the best in some guys. Different guys are motivated by different things. I think Elijah Moore is one that wants to know that you absolutely 100% believe in him. And same thing with Cade York to a certain extent. So I think Elijah will, just really thrive and flourish in this environment where they are showing him that he is extremely valuable to them.
You also wrote an article, Amari Cooper kind of brought up the Rams duo of Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, and said those two, which that's pretty good. That's the greatest show on turf, they called it. But Cooper felt like he and Moore had that same kind of balance. Take us through that article.
Yeah, I covered that championship game, the greatest show on turf, and I remember doing that and just writing a whole big feature story on Kurt Warner that year, and just kind of diving into that whole thing with Torrey and Isaac. So, Amari is a student of the game, and he really believes that he and Elijah Moore together can play at that level. And that's a lofty goal to have. But hey, why not speak something like that into existence? He put it out there, and Elijah Moore, he's buying it. So why not have a little bit of fun with this? And, and that's what you want to see from a football team with so many talented players. They should feel good about themselves. They should, talk the talk and all of that. So I thought it was cool what he said, and I've written about it a couple times.
Yeah, you know what? If that happens, get ready for the songs, because they will be hitting the airwaves in Cleveland if the two of those guys take off like that. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave Frank from Cleveland. I just touch base on a few things. I'm in Cade York's corner. That kid kicked into one of the biggest stages in college football in the sack. So we got to stick by this kid. Number two, what do you think about this linebacker lineup I want to run by you? Diabate, JOK, and Kuznick. Drafted these guys, signed them. They're playing hard, and they're young and hungry. And Jim Schwartz can do wonders with people like that. And number three, great show, brother, as always. I love you. You be good. Be safe out there. Thank you, Dave.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, you look at that. Diabate is a guy that he looked a lot like JOK, just fast all over the field, and that's what Jim Schwartz likes. He likes linebackers that play downhill and play fast.
Yeah, and I think when you can go out in a football game and make big plays in an NFL game, even if it's a preseason game, even if you're going against backups, if you can jump off the page and jump off the screen like that and make tackles for safeties and force turnovers, I think it shows that there is something to you. And they see it, and I think it would be way too soon to give up on Diabate. So I think they need to go out and put him on the team and absolutely 100% see what he can do.
Greg Newsome talked yesterday, met with me. He talked about playing in a much simpler defense under Jim Schwartz.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely some stuff, though, that we kind of mix up. But I think it's just, the sense of urgency that Coach Schwartz, coaches us with. Like, he doesn't accept, mediocre. So, when we get out there, we get new coverages and things like that. Guys aren't making the same mistake twice, which is a good thing. Like, it's definitely some mistakes being made still, but I think the sense of urgency that we're playing with and, learning with and our teachers are teaching with is just, at an all-time high.
When you look at that defensive line now, it's been rebuilt with Miles there. And now that you've gotten to actually see it in motion, just what does that do for you as someone in the secondary, knowing that you have that type of pressure ready to go up front versus maybe years past?
Yeah, just thank you, Lord. That ball got to come out super fast. Just even sitting there the game before against the Commanders and just seeing, the ability to get safeties from a holding penalty and things like that, that's amazing. So I'm glad we got those guys on my team. It makes my job a lot easier. It makes us a lot, more confident on the back end, knowing, we could be real sticky in coverage because those guys will get there.
Mary Kay, how impressed have you been with Jim Schwartz's defense? What do you think the biggest difference will be with the Browns' defense this year?
Well, there will be plenty of differences, but I think the number one thing that we will see is a much, much better defensive line, getting those sacks and getting those guys moving forward and being very disruptive. That's the absolute number one thing that you're going to see. And then, of course, that's going to really help the guys on the back end. So I think you're going to see more takeaways. I really do. I think you're going to see those guys in the back end and even the linebackers. I think you're going to see more forced fumbles. I think you're going to see more interceptions. And they need to do that because they were way near the bottom of the list in takeaways last year. And that's the name of the game. If you can win the takeaway battle each week, you're going to win a lot of football games. And I think they'll be much better in that regard.
There's a lot more. It's enthusiasm. There's a little bit of swagger. Do you think that continues? Is that by design? Everybody is celebrating when a guy on their unit makes a play.
Yeah, it's starting to be a real close unit. Greg was talking yesterday about how the defensive backs are always together, always hanging out. And I think that's important. I think these guys, I remember back many years ago when, Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield and those guys were all together. They were such good friends. They were very, very close. And you're starting to see that on this in this secondary now. And, when you have that kind of friendship off the field, you really want to go to war with each other and you have your best friends back on the field. And I think that that's the kind of thing that you will see more so this year.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I can take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. It's Tony from Pueblo, Colorado. Listen, I was wondering if you guys have at least a general idea of what you think the final roster might look like. And then maybe discussions of who else might even be there when it came to the practice squad. I'd love to hear it tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I know in your Hey Mary Kays you've answered, will Austin Watkins and Mahmoud Diabate make the 53-man roster? What are your thoughts? Those are guys. Diabate is an undrafted rookie free agent, and Watkins kind of came into camp after playing in the USFL.
Well, what Watkins is going to have to demonstrate is that he can play on special teams. If he can play and contribute on special teams, then he would have a reason to make the roster and be up on game day. You have to show that you can do something on Sunday afternoons. So that will be the key. Do they have the right kind of styles for what they need, or is his style too similar to someone else on the team or in that wide receiver room, someone that they already have? So these are some things that they have to try to figure out. And then there's a player like a Jalen Darden. He brings speed. They really like him. There's something intriguing about him, but he's been injured the whole entire camp. So they've got some decisions to make. I would think that, Watkins might have a chance, but he's not a lock. And I would say that Diabate, I would say that he probably has a really, really good chance of being on the final roster.
The other one that comes to mind is you mentioned Darden. Is David Bell pretty much a lock, or is he kind of in that iffy range?
No, David Bell's a lock, and I've been saying that and writing that for a long time. And it's been hard to get people to to kind of come my way on that in some regards. But I think people are starting to understand that David Bell is a recent draft pick of Andrew Berry's. He does not give up on his draft picks easily. Kevin Stefanski loved David Bell last year. They love his work ethic, what he brings to the table, and he's not going anywhere. Is Jakeem Grant healthy enough? That's another one that in that Darden realm. I know he came back from the injury. What have you seen from Jakeem Grant? You know what? I think that they've probably have seen enough of Jakeem to put him on the team as a returner and then part-time receiver that can give you that element of speed. He looks explosive. He looks good. As of right now, again, that might come down to one of those really tough decisions. But as of right now, I think he's got a really good chance of making the team. Okay, this one from ESPN.com, projecting the NFL's top sack leaders for 2023. Number one, they have Myles Garrett. So he had 16 sacks a season ago. They project him at 13.2, and they say he has a 16.0 sacks, but a 26.5 pass rush win rate in both of the past two seasons. The latter number ranked third in the league both times. So they have Garrett ahead of Nick Bosa, who was 2, Micah Parsons, who was 3. I can certainly see Myles Garrett leading the NFL. He's playing with a lot of talent, really for the first time in his career with the Browns. Yeah, it's curious though that they would only give him 13 some sacks. He's had 16 in each of the last couple of years with really not a whole lot of help around him. So I think now that he will have a little bit of attention drawn away from him, and he will have such a stout defensive line all the way around, I think he probably can get more than 16. So I think it's a little odd that they would rank him number one and only give him 13 and a half sacks. The number one guys in the NFL end up with 18, 19, 20 sacks. So I think that, I think he might end up having more than 16. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. They have him at number one with 13.1. They have Bosa at 13.2. So they don't project anybody with more than 13.2 sacks, which tells me those projections are kind of crushed down low. This is from the Bleacher Report. Browns win-loss prediction for 2023. They predict them at 8 and 9. There aren't any exactly soft spots in Cleveland's schedule. It's never easy having to play 6 total games against the Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers. Maybe tough for the Browns to build momentum, just as they struggled to do in 2022 when they had only one winning streak. The AFC North's schedule is pretty rough just because of how stacked it is. I think that's a little low. I think 8, 9 and 8 would probably be disappointing. Well, when you think about it, they won 7 games last year with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback for 11 games and some serious issues on defense. And also some serious issues on special teams, which they're hoping that they got those resolved, and we will soon find that out. But I think with Deshaun playing all 17 games, that they should be able to win, I would think right now, 10 or 11 games. Could be less, could be more, but that's where I have them at right now. If I had to pick a number, today, I don't know if I would go 10 or 11, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, that was more along the lines of what I was thinking as well. The ceiling's probably 12 or 13 just because of how tough the schedule is. All right, before I let you go, I know this was from a Hey Mary Kay. Is there any sort of roster bending or moves you see Andrew Berry making to do with Sione Takitaki or Anthony Walker in order to try to potentially get some guys they like on that initial roster? So you're talking physically unable to perform or any of those type of lists? I don't think so at this point, but I mean, they possibly could. I mean, if there's anything that that they could do to keep around the guys that they want to, they will certainly try to do that. But what you can't do with those two guys is you can't release them and hope that no one's going to pick them up, because someone would pick those guys up. So yeah, I think they'll make the roster and they'll be fine, and they'll find other ways to keep other guys around. And some of these guys, as you know, are going to end up on the practice squad. So just because they get cut on the final cut down day on August 29th doesn't mean that they won't be back on the football team very soon.
All right, one last question. So who do you think, what do we need to see in this final preseason game against Chiefs to feel pretty good before you get the 2 weeks before you face the Bengals?
You know what? I mean, if you could see a little bit of the Deshaun Watson to Elijah Moore, a little bit more of that, just to see what that might look like. I think you have a pretty good idea of what Deshaun to Amari is, but in a game situation, see how Elijah looks with Deshaun and how that's all going to come together. That's definitely something fun to watch.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, check her out, Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Best Browns coverage you're going to find. Always has what's going on out in Berea. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com straight ahead. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us on Sports4CLE.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. How you doing? I was wondering what's the deal with this Woods. He's always, every year, where he's a good compliment to Watson, is on the injured list. And further, there shouldn't be no debate now with this kid, Watkins. So in order for the Browns to have success, Watson is going to need weapons. And so you never know who's going to get injured. Schwartz should never take the field. You just blow on the ball, it'll fall out of his arm. I'm just concerned with the receiver group, but I'm just pulling for the Browns. You know, every year we get excited. We've been trying to get there and always draft them from the bottom. So go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So Tim, Woods hurt himself in season-ending injured list, working out with Deshaun Watson in the offseason. I get the idea about the wide receiver room because it's somewhat unproven, but Donovan Peoples-Jones was pretty good. Cedric Tillman looks pretty good. Elijah Moore, you have enough you have enough varied pieces that you should be able to find a really effective wide receiver room.
Yeah, and I mean, the guys that caller brought up, Michael Woods and Anthony Schwartz, those are guys that probably be battling right now for spots in the second part of the receiver depth chart right now, because the top four looks pretty set. Obviously, Mari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, they're in good shape. Cedric Tillman's obviously had a great preseason. He's not going anywhere. Catching up with Mary Kay was from Mary Kay earlier. David Bells, she says, not going anywhere, so that's 5. So right there, you're talking about 5 receivers. That's the most you could put on the field at any one given time, already kind of being taken care of. With Woods, obviously that torn Achilles, it's always unfortunate. It's always tough to see those guys go down with injuries. And with Anthony Schwartz, he did look better in that last preseason game, but with just so much competition in front of him, not a lot of spots, it's just going to be tough for him to find a way onto the field. He really needed to have an amazing preseason, and those first 2 preseason games continue the struggles that he had a year ago in the preseason.
Yeah, the fumbles are concerning without question. This is from ESPN's Get Up. Bart Scott, former NFL linebacker, on what he expects from Deshaun Watson.
It's not like he's past his prime. He's just entering his prime, where the mind and the body kind of meet and everything slows down. Listen, this is one of the best, most talented players, and I think he's going to remind people, much like Kevin Durant did, much like Kawhi Leonard did, when he gets back out there, just who he is and what he's been for this league. And he's the ultimate winner. Remember, he was at a dysfunctional organization, and the knock on the Houston Texans and all their teams was that Deshaun Watson was always running for his life. But now he's going to a top 5 offensive line, and the fact that he even has 3 seconds to have to process means that it's going to be better. Because you talk about his skill position, going out and getting Elijah Moore. Last year, everybody just doubled Amari Cooper, and he had to hold down and birth the baby. But now he's going to have an opportunity to be able to deliver the ball on time. He has the best running back in all of football, the best offensive line coach in all of football. So he's going to have guys running wide open because you're going to have to put 8 men in the box. And now I think the unspoken thing is nobody talks about the acquisition of Jim Schwartz. Everybody talks about Vic Fangio and how the Miami Dolphins are a live dog because of that. If they get the talent that they have on defense to play up to their expectations within that division, Cleveland is not only a live dog to win that division, they're a live dog to be a sneaky Super Bowl champ.
And Tim, I've said this, the closer you get to the season, the more you hear guys who have played in the NFL or coached in the NFL who are saying that about this Browns roster.
Yeah, and by and large, this offseason, they've flown under the radar. So it's, it's kind of interesting. Like you said, we're only a couple weeks away from the season, and the noise is kind of picking up about, maybe people thinking, the Browns are better than most people expect. And I think it's easy to forget, last year, Deshaun Watson came into Cleveland, obviously struggled throughout the season. The preseason game against Jacksonville, those last 6 games, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, why he had those issues, had a lot of rust to knock off. And, of course, we've talked about 1,000 times, that defense they had last year, if it was anywhere close to what we expect this defense to be this year, that this should have been a 9-8 football team, not 7-10. The defense cost multiple games, and really the offense did its job when most people thought they weren't going to be very good. They're just trying to tread water, and sometimes it was the offense that had to carry the mail for them. So now with Deshaun Watson back, you assume the rust is gone or mostly knocked off. And if you look at that preseason game against Washington, he looked like Deshaun Watson. And, we didn't really get a chance to say that much last season, but he looked confident. He looked composed. He looked like himself. And if you can get that to Deshaun Watson, even not necessarily in week 1, if you can get him that early in the season, you can get him looking like Houston Deshaun Watson, as Borska was talking about, with a better team around him than he had in Houston, where he has pieces that are going to help him instead of pieces he has to kind of put on his back to success. There's no reason to think this team, like you said, can't be a sneaky challenger in the AFC. It's just, people didn't really talk about it until now. We're getting close to the season. People are looking at what the Browns have done, and you see why this team is it's poised to do something this season.
So this is from ESPN. It's the NFL preseason power rankings. Chiefs 1, Eagles 2, Bengals 3. They have the Browns at 18. So and that's where they had them. It seems pretty low. On the hot seat, Kevin Stefanski. Pressure is firmly on Stefanski this season to finally produce a winning record while proving he's the coach and play caller who can help Deshaun Watson lead the offense. Given the $230 million investment in Watson, anything short of a return to the postseason, and Cleveland will likely be on the hunt for yet another coach next season. Again, the old Kevin Stefanski's on the hot seat narrative. There are high expectations, but it's going to depend. If they don't make the playoffs, why didn't they make the playoffs is going to have to be the answer. The thing that I would say is what we've seen in the preseason, it looks like it's Deshaun Watson's offense, which is what you want to see. And I think that's a positive to Kevin Stefanski as well. He hasn't had a quarterback with this much talent. He hasn't had the ability to say, here, go make a play. He has a quarterback where he can go say, here, go make a play. Make this work.
Yeah, at his best, Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback. We've seen it throughout his early career in Houston. It's like Bart Scott said, it's not like Deshaun Watson forgot how to play. It's just getting used to NFL speed again and understanding those concepts. And last year, I think what he ran in those last 6 games, there was a lot of Jacoby Brissett's offense that, Stefanski had to install because of the 11-game suspension levied against Deshaun Watson prior to the start of the season. So they had to tweak the offense to make it more Brissett-centric. And now this year, with a whole winter to kind of construct an offense based around Deshaun Watson, based around, the weapons they've added, particularly Elijah Moore at receiver and a guy they can put all over the place, there's no reason to think this offense can't be productive. We talk about, people criticizing Kevin Stefanski for his lack of creativity. A chef can only make such a good meal if he has so many good ingredients. You're not going to make a great meal unless you have a lot of good things in the kitchen necessarily, and that was what Stefanski was working with the quarterback until he got Deshaun Watson, and now they've had a year to figure out what he's good with, what he struggles with. They've bolstered the weapons on offense. Right now, there's no excuses, but with the way he's performed in camp, he's certainly been better in camp. I mentioned that preseason drive. We'll see how much more work he gets on Saturday in Kansas City. But there's no reason to think he shouldn't be better, and by proxy, the Browns shouldn't be better as well. So, the arrow should be going up on this team, if anything.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from Greg Newsome. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to talk Browns here for a sec. I don't understand the Ernest Johnson to the Jackson deal. I don't think we got any compensation for that. And the players that I like is that linebacker, I think it's number 43, Bitonio or something like that, and Thomas. Phillips is always injured. Michael Wood always injured. Watson needs players that's going to be there that can make a difference. So with this Goodwin situation, I think we need a second opinion on his blood cost. But those are my comments, and hopefully go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. So, Tim, Dearness Johnson became a free agent. They liked Ford. They let him sign with Jacksonville. And from his perspective, he kind of saw he wasn't going to get the opportunity. Now, I don't know that he's going to get much more of an opportunity in Jacksonville. You got ETN, and they drafted Tank Bigsby. I like Diabate, too. I want to see more of Diabate. And Isaiah Thomas, that's going to be tough for him because of what they have upgraded that line to right now.
Yeah, I'll start with Thomas. He had a couple nice moments as a rookie, but when it comes to the roster and making the team, it becomes a numbers game. And even looking at the depth chart, you've already got the top 4 kind of penciled in, essentially top 5 penciled in with Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Obo Okaronko, Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright. So unless you're carrying 6 defensive ends, there's just no room for Isaiah Thomas on the team. It's just tough, but that's just kind of the way it is, in the NFL. When it comes to Mo Diabate, I mean, how could you not like what Mo Diabate did in that game against the Eagles? Got the safety, forced a fumble. He's one of those guys. I always like thinking about these guys, when it comes to looking at players that, teams bring in for the draft or whatever, or UDFAs, guys that can move and play at a high speed and can take the game at a high speed. To me, those are the most important things. And Mo Diabate clearly shown that, he has that ability. And, going back to Dearness Johnson, like you said, obviously the Browns wanted to put Jerome Ford, the number 2 back. Obviously, we haven't been able to see much of Ford as he's been battling a hamstring issue. So certainly, that's going to be something interesting to watch is, what do they do for a third running back? Is that third running back even on the roster? And with Dearness, it's just tough luck going to Jacksonville. Obviously, Travis Etienne had a very nice season in 2022. And Tank Bigsby was a running back I really liked out of college. So, I mean, that's a really good 1-2 punch. So it's kind of tough luck for Dearness, going to a place where he thought he was going to be the number 2, and he kinds of being in the same situation he was in when he was with the Browns behind Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, and again, you just never know how the roster is going to shake out at any given thing relative offseason to the draft. Greg Newsome talked to the media yesterday. His role in the defense this year and what Jim Schwartz might add to this mix week to week.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I think he has so much stuff. But, he said we were one of the best groups of being able to, get information and retain it and, put it on tape. So he definitely probably got some more stuff out there that we haven't seen yet.
Kind of follow up Chris's question. Are you pleased with what you think your role is going to be and how Jim is going to use you, whether it's outside, the combination of outside, inside?
Yeah, I'm super pleased. I mean, I'm once again able to show my versatility. When I am inside, gladly I won't be. I said, like last year, I kind of felt like more of a little bit of a linebacker. But I think my role is amazing. And he's expecting me to do a lot of things on the inside. So I'm super excited for it. I'm just trying to do whatever it takes for us to get to where we need to get to.
And again, the important thing that we're hearing, Tim, everybody on the defensive side of the ball, they want to get after it. I think they want to play now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with Jim Schwartz, that's kind of, just he has that infectious personality where he's fiery, he gets you fired up to play, and it seems like the defense is kind of carrying that lead. And we've seen so many players talk about, Shelby Harris when he came to the Browns talk about, that this is kind of a dream scheme for certain types of players because it's very attack minded, it's aggressive, and defenders love to play aggressive football typically by and large. I don't know how many defenders are probably be like, I would love to sit back, in drop 8 coverage and, just let the quarterback kind of pick you apart instead of being a guy who's going to being part of a defense going to get after the quarterback. If you can affect that quarterback more, you're going to create more pressure, more havoc, more takeaways. It's just it just builds over and over within itself. And that was the biggest criticism I had last year with the Browns defense. It seemed like they were very reactive and, they were just kind of just be patient and, passive in a sense. I don't think that's going to be much of an issue this year. They can't be 100% attack minded. You can't really do that in the NFL, but being aggressive more often than not and really setting a tone, that's not going to be an issue with Jim Schwartz. And it's good to see that, it seems like when it comes to Greg Newsome, the concerns he have about the slide, it seems like those are a thing of the past right now.
Yeah, this defense, I do believe, will have an identity, and we'll see it pretty quickly as the season gets underway. So former offensive lineman, Brian Baldinger, we've seen him break down some preseason tape of DeJuan Jones. Take a look at what he sees from Nick Harris.
Nick Harris is battling for a backup center job with the Cleveland Browns, started last night. But he did some really good things. There's a couple things that everybody needs to learn. Like, first of all, when you hit the man's hip, you move the body. Like, that right there is how you help out your guard. Bam. Right there, that's a punch. Bam. But Joe Thomas used to say, the great Hall of Famer Joe Thomas say, if you hit the hip, you move the body. Like, bam. Everybody, get low and hit the hip and you'll move the body. That's Jalen Carter, who he's cracking right here. All right, up on the Kobe Dean. You watch this, and it's play after play. Nick Harris hitting the hip. Like, you watch him in the run game right here. This is a RPO right here. Like, that's how you move a tackle out of the way, up on the linebacker. Like, this is just a well-coached, deep offensive line at every position.
And, again, perspective of a former offensive lineman, some of the things you might not see as a casual fan, that's a pretty good indication. Again, that's a guy that's fighting for a roster spot.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to feel for Nick Harris when he probably could have been the starter last year at center, but, had that knee ACL injury. I think it was in the first series of that game against the Jaguars. Obviously missed the entire season. Ethan Posick stepping up, and good for the Browns that he did, because it gave them a center that they could at least go into 2023 with as a starter. But you did have to feel for Nick Harris, a guy who, entering his third year at the time, felt like it was his time to take the job from J.C. Treader, but obviously that didn't happen. So it's good to see that, Harris is putting good film out there, even if he doesn't make the team. But you would have to imagine that maybe come cut down time, especially after the Browns drafted Luke Whippler, and he seems like he could be the long-term center prospect of the future. Maybe he's a guy you can get a late pick for or something, because Harris is a guy I think who can play. He just had an unfortunate circumstance last season and then got drafted over because, in the 6th round Luke Whippler had too much value to pass up there. So he's a guy who should be starting somewhere. Maybe he doesn't win the battle again because, Andrew Berry just drafted another center, but he really should be on another NFL roster. If the Browns can get a draft pick for him, I think that'd just be a great bit of asset management from Andrew Berry. And for Nick Harris, I hope if it's not with Cleveland, I hope for him, after the way his career kind of started, that, he gets somewhere and he goes and has a productive career as a starting center.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll hear what a former NFL wide receiver expects to see from Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Browns getting ready for their preseason finale against the Kansas City Chiefs, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Harry Douglas, former NFL wide receiver with the Falcons, on what he expects to see from Deshaun Watson and the Browns offense this season.
The offense that he was playing in Houston is going to be different than the offense that he was playing in Cleveland right now.
That's fair.
Nick Chubb is the man when it comes to that offensive system. So are we going to take stuff away from Nick Chubb to let Deshaun Watson do his thing, or are they still going to lean on Nick Chubb and, diversify things differently? So I think it's all about the context of it and what that looks like. Because I don't think he's going to put the numbers up that he put up in Houston just because of you have a bona fide running back in the way this offense is built. Now, do I think he's going to be good? Of course he's going to be good. It's just how good. I don't think we're going to see the 2020 Deshaun Watson because 2 reasons. Number one, he's been off from football for a very, very long time, Freddie. And, you miss about a year and a half. You come back the last 6 games, but you do have a full offseason. Your mind's probably a little bit more clear now. But the offensive system doesn't tell me that he's going to put up those numbers. Now, I think he's going to be able to go out there and be efficient.
Right.
But is it going to be start to finish? I think it may, take a few games, and then we may see Deshaun Watson at his best.
And Tim, that's probably a fair assessment. To think he's going to go from 0 to 100 in week 1, not fair. He doesn't have to put up. Nobody, if you're expecting 4,800 yards and 40 touchdowns, if you have a back like Nick Chubb, he's going to take some touchdowns. That's okay. The question is, with the ball in your hands late in the game, Does your offense feel like you can make plays, and is the defense going, man, we got to deal with this with the game on the line? If they have that feeling, the offense and the defense, Deshaun Watson's going to have a successful season.
Yeah, and I think the part that, Harry Douglas didn't mention, though, there is the presence of Deshaun Watson should open things up for Nick Chubb even more. I mean, last season we saw a ton of crowded boxes that Nick Chubb ran into, 7, 8, 9 defenders at times, and still getting productive yards. All of a sudden you put Deshaun Watson on the field, you put 3 or 4 receivers out there, you can't have those crowded boxes. Those linebackers are replaced with corners, and corners, especially slot corners who are typically smaller guys. Nick Chubb has made a career of, breaking a lot of tackles. So certainly some runs in first down situations, maybe out of shotgun, go from 3-4 yards to 5-6-7 yards. And then you're getting shorter yard situation, more shot plays. And I think those two should have an ability to play off of each other. The play action game should be pretty lethal. Potentially, especially because defenses have to respect Nick Chubb's ability because of the yards he put up last year with Jacoby Brissett as his quarterback, and because of Chubb's ability to be a home run hitter anytime he steps on the field. But it's still going to come down to, in the NFL, can your quarterback, like you said, make those big plays when it counts? And, Watson has certainly a lot of talent around him and the ability to make those things happen. Just a matter of him going out and doing it in brown and orange.
So this is a tweet from Mac. We use this stuff quite a bit. When talking about the new and upgraded passing attack, everyone's glossing over David Njoku. Points out, second among tight ends last year with red zone receptions. He had 12. And keep in mind, Cedric Tillman, the third-round pick, is going to have a red zone role just because of his size. You've got Elijah Moore. They're going to throw the ball to the back more. There are other options that open themselves up when you have a quarterback that the head coach feels is a playmaker.
Yeah, and then David Njoku certainly hasn't had a quarterback to play with that's as good as Deshaun Watson is. We've seen Njoku have plenty of, big plays throughout his career, just hadn't had a lot of consistency. And part of that has been who's been throwing him the football, especially, the last 2 seasons when he's taken on a more pronounced role. 2021, Baker Mayfield had the torn labrum in the left shoulder. 2022 is Jacoby Brissett, and he was just never going to be a guy who was going to, make big plays with his arm, win games with his arm. He had the talent to keep you in games, and we saw a lot of that last season, maybe even a little more than we expected from Brissett. But, with what we expect this offense to look like this season, this certainly could be a chance for David Njoku to raise some eyebrows. I know it feels like we've been saying that for a while with Njoku, but, the arrow keeps pointing up with him. He's still not close to 30 yet. So there's reason to think he should still be pretty productive in this offense. Just, it may not be a lot of target shares because, there's so many players on this offense, but certainly a chance for things to continue to open up for him, especially, like you said, in the red zone.
So Browns will have that final preseason game, 1 o'clock. Kevin Stefanski said there will be, the starters will play. There will be several of them that do not, that he holds back. Who, if you're Kevin Stefanski, are you kind of saying, we're going to wait until these things really, really matter before we let you play? Who do you think might be sitting out this final preseason game?
I'll give you 3 guesses. The third one might be a little wild, but I think the first 2 are pretty obvious. Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb. I mean, we don't need to see either of these guys. Myles Garrett, he's been utterly dominant in training camp, from all the videos you see, just completely unblockable. And, him and Jim Schwartz seem like a perfect marriage as far as, pass rusher and scheme and the things that Jim Schwartz wants out of his defense. That's a perfect fit. Nick Chubb, you don't need to see any Nick Chubb. That's not what this is about as far as, the first team. It's about getting the passing game some work, some reps, a lot of reps against Kansas City. He's got plenty of talented players on the defense. So no need to see Nick Chubb. Obviously, you would love to see Jerome Ford out there, but probably not going to happen with his hamstring issues, but still probably should be a lot of throwing. The third one, I'm going to throw a little wild card out there. I think a Jack Conklin might be a good idea to sit for this game. He just had the concussion and the joint practices with the Eagles. And, with the buzz around DeJuan Jones, I would really like to see him get some first-team reps against the Chiefs. I think that'd be a great opportunity for him. He played the entire Hall of Fame game. He's been a guy that has, trended upward throughout, the preseason. He had some great one-on-one battles with Nolan Smith in that preseason game in Philly last Thursday night. I say put him out there on the first team at right tackle, see what he can do. And, just you're not, I wouldn't expect Joel Bitonio to play that either, but that's just my guess. This one with Conklin sitting is kind of more of a selfish thing because you kind of want to see DeWan get a little opportunity and, kind of reward him for working hard in camp and getting him some first team reps, in a preseason game and get him a chance to block Deshaun Watson and, let that kind of be some momentum as he goes and learns through his first regular season.
Yeah, with Conklin being banged up, I could see them. That didn't come to mind, but you want everybody healthy. Main thing is let's have everybody healthy when you're getting ready for the Bengals 2 weeks from Sunday. Tim Bielik, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always really good stuff. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.